Hello everybody and welcome to another Minecraft Update Ideas video. I hoped you liked last month. I actually thought it was the best yet, but I think this one could push it out of the water. Because this month, my update is the structural update. Okay, I know it doesn't sound like much, but last month was all about redstone, and that won't change the game for people who don't want it to. But this month will, because a bit like the first one, this update will feel a lot of world generation. So, what are we starting off with? Well, we'll start off simply with occasionally finding very large trees while exploring. These would be oak trees, smaller than jungle trees, but bigger than dark oak. The key difference between these and jungle trees is that these have much more of a mushroom shape. They have large air gaps and branches made of logs spreading out to the clumps of leaves. On the screen now are hopefully some examples. Well, these are different to standard oak trees, and I'll tell you why later, but I prefer these to those randomly large oak trees that you get, because those can be annoying. But what's the point of these trees, which are also very annoying to remove? Well, firstly, they look cool and add more variation to world exploration, which will be a running theme in this update, but also, I would like them to feature two new mobs, both ambient. In the trees, I'd like people to be able to find squirrels and owls. Owls would not drop anything, and would be a bit like large versions of parrots. They just fly about and hoot. You cannot tame them, and other than looking good in the trees, they serve no purpose. Squirrels, on the other hand, do. When you kill them, which is hard because they move quite sporadically and quickly, they drop 1 to 2 acorns. These acorns can be planted in soil to create a giant oak sapling. These first grow into a normal oak tree, but if left long enough, they can grow into a giant oak. So, like all trees, these giant oaks can be grown by the player. These trees would be very rare, only spawning in plains biomes and having a 1 in 50 chance to spawn per chunk. But I think I've talked about trees long enough. On to the next point! That idea is more dungeons, and I have a few ideas about what these should be. One kind of dungeon I'd like to see is a labyrinth. Obviously not like the one in the Twilight Forest, because that is far too big. I'm talking maybe a 20 by 20 stone brick structure with 1 or 2 mob spawners in it. 20 by 20 actually seems a bit small looking back, maybe 30 by 30 or so, or 40 by 40. At the middle is 2 gold blocks and 4 chests. It is guaranteed that a notch apple will be in one of these chests, along with some rarer materials such as diamonds, emeralds, gold, iron, and ender pearls. Very occasionally, these mazes would spawn with 2 levels, and if you get through these, then there are better rewards, such as more than 1 notch apple, 4 gold blocks, and more diamonds and emerald than normal. It would be nice to have some kind of dungeon similar to Zelda and things like that. Dungeon sprawls like Pixel Dungeon, for instance. Jeb has mentioned things like this before. He showed a while ago he was working on something like this with structure blocks, which would allow random dungeons to spawn through having modules that can all spawn. These would be great. They'd be dark and scary and have quite a few mob spawners in them, and they just give a better experience than abandoned mineshaft and all the pre-generated structures, which are always the same, so once you've seen them, it's boring. These would always be different and unique. Along with these dungeons, I would want to introduce more skeleton and zombie variations like Husk and Strays. Firstly, I think it would be cool if once in a while a skeleton spawned without a bow, just its hand, or maybe a sword. This would make it seem more like people's actual skeletons than just a mob that spawns. Secondly, to go along with the dungeon themes, you have adventurous skeletons. These skeletons would always spawn with a fairly powerful weapon. It would either be a diamond sword, or an enchanted iron sword, or enchanted bow. These would give these dungeons more of a challenge, and these adventurous skeletons would drop maps and or resources, like diamonds and gold when killed. I quite like the idea of them looking a bit like Indiana Jones and dropping gold nuggets, because of, you know. The maps, I'm thinking they might just be maps, but also possibly the sort of maps that you get from cartographers. What about zombies? Well, zombies get a minor variation, like zombie villagers. These spawn in abandoned mineshafts and abandoned mines, more about those later, and they are always holding a pickaxe. They have a higher chance of dropping these pickaxes when they are killed, and they can also drop ores when killed. There's one other mob I'd like to introduce, and that is a kingfish. These are basically giant silverfish. They can spawn in these dungeons, and they deal 2 hearts of damage and have 10 hearts of health. They make the same noise as silverfish, but at a lower pitch, which is a very low, very slow version of silverfish sounds as they move about. They can, like silverfish, break stone blocks around them to spawn silverfish. So, wait, I mentioned abandoned mines. What are they? Abandoned mines are similar to abandoned mine shafts, but they're easier to find because they start above ground in a hillside or something. They are staircases which lead down either into a mine, some half-mined wall, or into an abandoned mine shaft. In these abandoned mines, you can find a furnace room and also a lodging for the miners. You'll sometimes find a zombie miner in these. Other than that, there's no loot, although maybe there should be a storage room or some chests in the furnace room. I think you could definitely find some minecarts in there. When I said earlier about coming to the end of a mine, that's because I think if the staircase continues down and doesn't end up in a half-mined wall, it should be some sort of strip mine or something, or into a cave maybe. That would be fun. Along the same idea as abandoned mines, in order to suggest other civilizations, I think you should find land that's obviously been terraformed. Unnatural lines, half-cut down trees, that sort of thing. Now, let's move on to things I previously mentioned that I want to bring back for this update. Waterfalls and pirate ships. Pirate ships would have zombie and skeleton pirates to add more variations. Waterfalls just look cool. That's it. Next, to add more challenge to hard mode. In hard mode, in tigers and other places where wolves spawn, sometimes savage wolves will spawn. These are bigger than normal wolves and are always aggro. They can't be tamed and deal half heart more damage than wolves and have 2 hearts more of health. They will also be browner instead of the sort of grey colour of wolves, and they can spawn in easy or normal, but maybe only at a full moon, and maybe they'll have less health and do less damage. But that's about it for the mobs. So now we have 2 more structures to add. Number 1 of these new structures is a new kind of temple. This doesn't have any loot, but it looks cool. Basically, it's Stonehenge. But in Minecraft, maybe there should be a dungeon that spawns under it. Like the maze from earlier? That'd be quite cool. It'd be a good way to introduce these and have some kind of entrance into the mazes rather than just randomly finding them while you're digging about. Now, back to changing structures already in the game. This is probably my least favourite idea of the ones in this video, but more variation in them. Different kinds of houses. Different building blocks used. Just something so villagers aren't all the same. Zombie villages were okay, and you know, the different building blocks for different biomes, it's alright, but I really do want something more substantial. I'm not fussed about villager hereditary stuff, but if you do like that, then that's a good idea. To go with village variation, I would love zombie pigman villages in the Nether. It would help to change the Nether, which hasn't really been changed that much since its introduction. These would be made of nether brick and red nether brick, and would look a lot like normal villages. Their farms would have bone brick borders, grow netherwort, and have lava in the middle instead of water. And that's about the idea. I know there were lots of features, which is why I don't think all of these should be added. Gasp, I hear you say. These are all things I would love to see in the game, but at the same time, they would be a huge update, which really changes the world. And I think to combat not having some kind of structure in every biome you come across, you'd have to decrease the structure spawn rate. So let me know what you think about these ideas in the comments, and if you have your own ideas along this theme or any other theme, leave them in the comments. And if it's good, I'll credit you and maybe add it to another video. Anyway, thanks for watching. If you liked any of the ideas, make sure to leave a like. And if you enjoyed the video, leave another like so I know to do more. If you don't want to miss next month's, where I'll be talking about... flowers? Wait, really? That's the idea for next month. So, I guess flowers? If you don't want to miss... flowers? Then subscribe. And if you thought any of the ideas in this video were good, make sure to share it with all your friends. But thanks for watching. Ciao. Damn, that whole script is 4 pages. That's the most so far.